Hello, welcome to another episode of Earthworks Hub. Today I have a special guest with me. I've got Mr. James Lawton from Precision Environmental. How are you, James?
Yeah, I'm good, Ivan. How are you, mate?
Yeah, very good, man. Very good. I'm very pleased to have you on here. Like, where are you actually based?
So we're based in, like, our region that we're in is called West Gippsland. So we're about 100 kilometres southeast of Melbourne. So out past Pakenham, and then Warrigal's probably our closest, biggest town. And we're just 15 minutes north of Warrigal, sort of right in the foothills of the Bole Ranges there, sort of right on the edge of the bush, in dairy farm country.
There you go. I suppose hence that's why the environmental as part of the name, is it? So I'm guessing that's what you sort of do. Is that your main type of work, precision environmental being the name?
Yeah, I guess probably the easiest way to describe what we do is, if you had to summarise it in just one area, would be like vegetation and land management. But we cross over into, every time we put a post up on Instagram, we put that little tag at the end of it saying forestry, mulching, earthworks and tree care. They're sort of the three cornerstones of what we do. I've got a background in arboriculture. I'm a qualified arborist, and then also I did a civil apprenticeship many years ago and could never really decide whether I wanted to stay in civil or arboriculture. And so I had a really good friend that did environmental contracting for Melbourne Water with some large machinery. He's probably one of the largest environmental contractors around at the moment. And so I sort of saw what they did and thought, well, that's the perfect crossover between the two areas that I love. And so that's how sort of we came about. So we pretty much, it seems like we do a lot, yet it's a little bit specialised in some things we do. So we'll do anything from forestry mulching fuel breaks to doing house site cuts and shed site cuts, and assessing trees and controlling invasive vegetation, doing small civil works like putting in culverts and, driveways and things like that. So, yeah, we sort of cross over anywhere in that earthworks and land management space.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was looking through your Instagram profile, and obviously I follow you as well. And also, to anyone that doesn't know, so James's business is listed on the Earthworks Hub as well. So on the website, we've got a listing directory for all businesses, and he's actually listed on there. So if you want to go and find him, you can also find him on the website. But looking at some of the things that you do, I was actually very surprised as to how much of that vegetation work and that you do. And I've never really sort of worked around that environment. And then just watching some of the implements that you have, your attachments, the tree grabs, the tree cutters, and, all the mulches and stuff. It's actually interesting to watch. Very, very interesting. Tell us so how did you actually start? So is this your own business?
Yeah, this is my own business. It's been Precision Environmental since 2021, but we started in 2020. I had my ABN back in 2017 as a sole trader while I was still employed, and I used to do sort of tree and small civil work on the side on weekends. That got quite busy, and eventually we actually went out in 2020 full-time, about halfway through the financial year and right in the middle of the pandemic. So it seemed like the right time, even though the whole world and every state was just in calamity. But our work was building up, and I'd been doing it as a bit of a side project for a while, and I was working for a close friend where he was amazing. He let me work semi-full-time hours and just drop like a day or two a week, whatever I needed, to start fitting in my own work, and then I just eventually transferred out. So I got started into it. We went full-time in 2020 and just had a run at it and see how it went. We thought, well, if we can survive in the middle of a pandemic, we should be okay, in a couple of years. Yeah. And we just had a run at it. So I was building it very slowly in the background for a few years prior, originally it was sort of just a way to, work in a couple of areas that I wasn't working in and get a little bit more experience and generate a bit of extra money. And then I got to a stage, maybe in about 2019, I think it was, when I was watching one of my own friends that went out. He bought himself a skid. It was a guy I worked with for many years in civil, and he bought himself a skid steer and a truck, and he was doing some work actually for my mum. And I caught up with him, and I was watching him work, and I thought, geez, actually, this would be really nice just to be able to be self-employed and do it full-time. I'm under no illusion it's not going to be, difficult or anything like that. But so I thought, I made the commitment just to say, when I've got enough work behind me, we'll go for it and see what happens. And 5 years down the track now, and it's certainly definitely had its ups and downs, that's for sure. But overall, I'm very happy I did it. And same thing, like a lot of people, like yourself, and heaps of other stories I hear. We all sort of did it right in the middle of things not just being perfect. It just so happens that we were just like, well, if we're not going to do it now, when will we do it? So
Yeah.
yeah, I did it in the middle of a pandemic with a fair workload, and my now wife, and I were just dating at that stage. And 3 months into dating, we actually found out that we were pregnant as well. And so 3 months into having a new business and all this uncertainty around us, she just started a new career as well, and we found out we were having our first kid. And so it was a pretty full on time, but we just took our time and worked through everything. And yeah, it's been a hell of a ride, but it's really good, incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. And yeah, what you say is so true. It's never the right time. And my wife's a big ambassador of saying that. She always tells me that don't wait for the right time, because it'll never come. There will always be some reason not to do something. So sometimes you just gotta just jump in balls deep and just go for it, and then just see. I mean, have a plan, I suppose, and a bit of a backup, but sort of like a calculated risk. But like you're saying, it's just never the perfect time.
No, not at all. Like, we were never going to do anything like, I was never going to do anything like write some sort of business plan or anything and set myself some really hard goals. It was just, okay, let's just see if we can do this. It'll be a really interesting challenge, and and just see if we can make it work. And if we can't make it work, well, it's no sweat. It happens. But yeah, I didn't really set any sort of hard goals or anything for myself. It was just I had a really good career previously. And I loved who I worked for and everything like that, but I just didn't feel like I was getting what I wanted from it anymore, and it wasn't serving me as well as it could have. My family has been in business for themselves for quite a while. My brother and my father are arborists and run a very successful tree health company, and so I always had that exposure to other small businesses and would always work for them from time to time, and just thought, geez, it just, as much as hard as it is, it's just a rewarding journey. So yeah, when I decided to do it, it was very exciting, and it's still just as exciting now. Even though I like to think I'm a little bit wiser, but still one of the steepest learning curves I think I've ever had.
Yeah. No, so true, man. So true. So for all the people, like all the listeners that want to know how to get experience, because I get that question a lot. How did you go about getting your operating experience? Like, what did you do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's one that always needs to be talked about as well, because everyone's got slightly different ways, but you definitely hear the same overlapping themes. That if you really wanted to get into this, I guess it just has to be in you a little bit. It has to be a bit of a passion. I like to think that if I wasn't doing this for a job, I'd still have it as a bit of an interest. Like, I'd still be mucking around with machines or have some sort of interest in it in my spare time. My entry into it, like, I was lucky enough as a kid to grow up on a large farm and everything. We actually had a beef farm, and we also had an advanced tree nursery that we grew up on. And the trees we grew were the two types that you might see if you go to a big advanced trees nursery. You had what they call like container stock. So they're the trees that are grown above ground in like those pots.
Yeah.
And they're irrigated. But then we also had a huge portion of trees that we do what's called in-ground trees. So they're grown in the soil, actually wrapped up in like a geotextile root control bag. And so to actually maintain and harvest those, you use a lot of earth-moving machinery to do it. So from a young age, I grew up on a farm where we had a decent fleet of tractors, and then we also had a skid steer, and we had a partnership in an earth-moving company who actually still operate in Berwick actually now, Digga Constructions. We have nothing to do with them anymore, but they had an old 20-ton Cato that they used to harvest the trees with. And so they dig them out of the ground, holeless bolus, and then we put them on these large crane trailers with the tractors and take them up. And so I had the exposure from when I was a kid, but I never actually got into the earth moving or the civil plant until I was about 18. So as a kid, all my life, all I did was pretty much just drive tractors and worked for all the dairy farmers next door and everything. And like, my dad was pretty handy with machinery, and so the love for just operating and mulching paddocks or spraying and stuff like that came up really early. And so I did it from a young age. I think I was on a tractor, doing work by myself by the time I was about 8 years old, and sort of topping, like slashing paddocks and, doing whatever needed to be done. And so I sort of just really had that love and that sympathy, mechanical sympathy for the machinery. And it wasn't until I was about 18 that we started up another farm, and we had a little Hitachi 3-tonner to harvest the trees with, back in the day when, you used to be able to get those machines. Pretty much like all the Japanese machines would come out in whatever colour the manufacturers felt like during that week. So they'd come out in purple and blue and yellow and all that sort of stuff. And so I got on that at about 18 and really, really enjoyed it. So I thought, okay, well, I'll make a bit of a plan I was studying agriculture and horticulture at the time, and working in doing harvesting of silage and spuds and stuff like that, and driving a lot of tractors and machinery, but just didn't really like the seasonal hours. So I thought, if I could get into civil or earthworks, that would still be a machine-based job that I could get a lot of satisfaction out of and learn, but also I'd have more stable hours potentially. So I just made a little goal when I was younger to try and get a start with a civil company. And I called up a few people, didn't really have much luck. I spoke to my dad a little bit, and his advice pretty much was, before you go and get any earth moving tickets, as someone that's 18, or at the time I probably would have been about 19, 20, he said, look, you're old enough and capable enough to go and get your truck license and learn some other stuff around the earthworks. And Dad's advice was, small earth moving company in an area wants someone that has got their truck license, is happy to labour, is happy to learn how to shoot levels and all that sort of stuff. You need to be a useful asset to the business. And me being 19 years old went, yeah, maybe, because I probably wasn't that wise then. And so I went out and actually I went up to NMIT back in the day and did 2 weeks doing some earth moving tickets. So I did my excavator ticket, skid steer ticket, and articulated loader ticket at the time. Came back and I approached one of our local civil and earthworks businesses, who are still going today actually, and going strong. They were my first employer. So that's the A1 Group, the Rees family. And I remember turning up it was before I had to go work at my normal job. I was cold calling a heap of different earth moving companies, and no one really, was that interested. And I guess I wasn't approaching it the right way. So I turned up to the A1 Group at about 5:45 in the morning or something like that. They had their big yard there with all the machines, and they were batching asphalt at the time. And I had a friend of the family that was working there, and he said, turn up, come and speak to one of the owners, hand your resume over the desk. And so I turned up, and handed my resume over the desk, and they looked at it and went, oh yeah, okay, that's a really good start with what you've got. Go and get your truck license and we'll give you a start. And so I was pretty much eating my words, and I was like, okay, Dad was 100% right, as always. So at the time, Dad was like, oh, your birthday's coming up. How about I pay for your heavy rigid license for your birthday? And I thought, cool, no worries. So I went and did my HR license. Sure enough, they were stood by their word, and I called them up, and they were like, yeah, absolutely. When do you want to start? And so I got to start there. And it was still pretty difficult to try and get in the machinery. Like, they were really good about giving people a go. And from what everyone was telling me, I thought, well, it's probably a good idea that I'll just put my hand up for anything and everything, and just always ask to jump in something. I would jump in machinery on my lunch break. They had a pretty large yard with a lot of topsoil and profilings and recycled material. And so a lot of the time, after I'd knock off, I'd just go and approach Lee, the boss, and just say, look, do you mind if I go and heap up all the stockpiles and tidy up in the loader and everything? And his response was, yeah, absolutely, go for it, And I just do that on my own time for about an hour after work, and just do that to try and build up some experience. And then all of a sudden I started getting a little bit more time, now and then. And it sort of got to the point where eventually while I was there, they actually put me through a civil apprenticeship as well, which was really good of them. And they were awesome to work for, actually, really good company. They eventually got bought out by Pioneer Road Services, which then got bought out by Fulton Hogan. So we went from like a small local family business to being sort of bought out by this huge company. But the same themes were there. They were always pretty good about giving people a shot. So all of a sudden it came up with, there were just more and more jobs I was going to where, we'd be working somewhere, like we did a lot of really rural and remote work, doing sort of like storm damage and road maintenance and things like that, and laying culverts and doing drainage maintenance. And all of a sudden it would just be that I'd spend a whole week straight in like the 5-tonner, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting my hours up. This is great. So but it was a long road. Like, I spent 3 years there, and I still wasn't full-time in a machine. I was driving a lot of trucks, driving a lot of rollers and things like that, but I was just pretty much having a crack at anything I could to get the experience, because, if you can Like certainly if you can jump on a multi-wheel roller and, learn how to, multi-wheel roll, crushed rock or asphalt, well, you will start to get the feel for jumping on a smooth drum roller, which is a bit more difficult and challenging. And then if you can operate a smooth drum roller, well, there's no reason why after someone's, laid some rock down or, put a soil pad down, you can't get in the excavator and track roll it. So it was sort of just like trying to build of stuff. But it certainly took a while. Like for anyone trying to get into it, it's definitely a long return on investment. But if you really are, I think if you're really passionate about it, you live and breathe it, like so many people I listen to on the podcast, similar story, then I guess you don't mind sort of working up and everything. Yeah. I'd also do those things that you guys have talked about before, that we dry hire a machine for the weekend and just play around at home. Like I had, a lovely farm to, muck around on. Yep. And so we just go and hire a little mini from somewhere and then just, hack around quite poorly trying to do stuff or build dirt bike jumps or whatever, and just to get the hours up and experience. So, when it came time to jump in, that you started to get a feel for it. But there's certainly watching other operators helped. I try to watch the more experienced guys and just see what they do and be like, okay, well, if he's trying to trench out this spot here to replace an existing culvert, what's he doing? Like, how's he sort of setting up the trench? How's he, picking the top of the existing grade off and lifting the pipes out, and how's he prepping it, and just what kind of like order of movement they do things in. Yep. Because if you don't see someone do it, I think it's quite, especially with the range of attachments you can have on an excavator now, I think it overwhelms people sometimes. Like they just look and they just get stuck, and I was the same. So it just took a lot of time. But nowadays, as you were talking about the other day, like the amount of content available for people that are happy to share how they do things is just incredible. So a combination of volunteering your time, I think, and trying to jump in anyone's machine the right way and respectfully, and then also watching a lot of content and just being like a sponge, trying to absorb everything you can. As you know, it doesn't matter if you've been running a business for 5 years, 20 years, 30 years, like you never stop learning. You're a sponge all the time. So yeah.
And there's always like another way to do something. Yeah, you might be doing something a certain way, and then you look over and see someone doing it different. You're like, oh shit, I never thought of that.
Yeah, I get that almost every day, I reckon. Like even the guy that works for me, using the machinery as I've had, but you think, crap, I didn't even think of it like that. We'll give it a go. So everyone's got something to offer.
Yeah. Mate, I'll tell you what, that is some awesome advice for anyone that's looking at starting out or even thought about, where to start. That is what you just said in that last bit was the best. Like, you got to be able to be multi-skilled, try different things. So you can't. Some people think, I just want to be an operator and that's it, and they think, I'm just going to go learn how to use a machine. But there's a lot more to it. You got to sometimes start 100%. Right from the bottom.
Yeah, and it's everything around it, because you need to be an asset to people. Like, and you'll hear employees talk about it. I've heard Jimmy Starbuck talk about it, who, by the way, like, the complaint that I hear of so many other business owners is they go, you can employ someone that is, well, they say, I've employed someone who's a gun operator who is super quick, super efficient, can final trim like a pro, can, bulk incredibly quick or whatever, but they can't maintain a machine. They're incapable of doing a JSA. They can't talk to a council client that turns up, or they can't talk to a developer or something because, they roll out of the cab looking disheveled and vaping and swearing their head off and stuff. And the same thing in the arboriculture industry. They were saying that and I've seen it, like there's a lot of people out there that are gun climbers, or gun fellas, but they don't really know how to mix up two-stroke fuel properly. They can't back trailers. They can't maintain a truck. They, at the end of the week, the truck is a pigsty and they don't even blow it out or grease anything. It's all those things around it that I think makes someone an asset to a business. And if you want to start with some of these people, like, they're investing hundreds of thousands, if not millions, if they're a big company, in this equipment, they want it looked after, and they also don't want to lose work, as a result of employing you as well. Like, being an asset, being sort of someone that can not only, operate, like being a good operator, being a good driver, being a good person that does the core business part of it. Yes, it's a big part, but it's only one part. There's everything else around it. So you need to be, I think, especially like in civil, particularly depending on what company you work for and how they work for, being a good truck driver, being a good machine maintenance person, someone that keeps cabs clean, someone that keeps their paperwork and stuff like that immaculate, You know, someone that's happy to get down and grease stuff all the time. You know, someone that can sort of, you know, drive a truck well and put it where it's got to be, or spread rock well and stuff like that. There's all these other skills around it that help you stand out from the rest. And I think the way I looked at it when I was younger, and I mean, I was fairly young when I did it. I'm 38 now, about to turn 39, and I was 20, turning 21 when I first sort of got a full-time crack at, you know, doing civil work and stuff like that. And I probably didn't have as much choice because, you know, straight away when I started work, they were just like, right, get in the truck, you know, and that's where you're going to be. But I thought, well, if I can do all this other stuff really well and look after the gear and everything like that, and, you know, do my pre-starts diligently every day and take part in the toolbox meetings and get involved in everything, it helped me sort of stand out. And, you know, I got good feedback from it, you know, without trying to blow my own trumpet, got good feedback from it from a crew leader who I didn't really get along with that well at the start. I always thought he was, you know, a bit tough on me. But I remember one day we were having smoko and he's like, oh, your name comes up in the crew leader meetings, you know, really positively. You know, they're really happy with you. And I was like, great, that's awesome. And that just added fuel to the fire to keep getting better and everything like that. So, yeah, trying to learn those other skills around the operating, around the machine operating, I think will value add. So, you know, like I haven't employed a lot of people recently. I've got one guy that works for me who's pretty good, and I'm really happy with him. He's a mate from way back. But the best people I've had work for me so far are about people that are happy to do everything else around the work as well. So, yeah, that definitely goes a long way.
Yeah, it does. It does. I remember once I put this young guy on, and I always tell this story. Like, he came in for a trial, and what was I doing? I was digging out a basement for a house. So, and then it was like a steep block. So where the back of the house was higher than the front, so it sort of went upwards, and then the house was sort of cut into the slope. So then I had him up at the top, and I said, "Listen, you jump on the track loader, just spread out up here, spread some soil on that. I'll watch you for a bit, and then I've just got to run down to the bottom and start backfilling around all the bottom of the basement where we had all the Aggie pipe." And he said, "No worries." And then I said, actually, what he was doing was he was dropping scoria in on top of the Aggie pipe along the outside perimeter of the walls from the far side. So I said, "You do that." So I was watching him for a little bit. So he went and did that, and I said, "All right, you good to keep going on your own?" He goes, "Yep, no worries." So I went down and I started shoveling down the bottom. And after a few minutes, I heard the machine turn off, and I was like, "I wonder what he's doing." You know, I thought something happened. And then a few seconds later, he comes down. He's got a hard hat, which he went to my truck and found one. Got a hard hat, a shovel off the truck, and he comes down. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, I finished backfilling the other side." And he said, "I thought I'd come and give you a hand." And I was like, "Mate, you've got the job. You've got the job straight away." You know what I mean? If he was thinking ahead, he really went and found things himself.
Yep.
And like you say, it's those extra bits that people do that will make you want to put them on and give them a go.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes them stand out. Like, the guy I got working for me at the moment, who's been working with me for a fair while, Benny, always find something to do. Like, there'll always be something that he'll be like, "Oh, hang on a sec, I'll go and grease this or maintain this or start doing this," or, you know, even if I've forgotten, he'll prompt me and be like, "Hey, do you want me to go get a load of rock?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, forgot about that. Sorry, yeah, go for it, mate." Like, you know, get into it. And same thing, I had one of the best employees that Benny and I have worked with, that came on board with us. He just clocked over 2 years with us. We had a young guy working for us, same as your guy. It was our next door neighbour's son, actually, and guy that I sort of, you know, went dirt bike riding with a little bit. He turned into an employee because he was a lovely kid, didn't really like school that much, and Lara, my wife, was like, "Oh, you know, why don't you get him doing some odd jobs around the house, see how he goes?" And we got him to go up, and same thing, he just thought of everything, and we gave him a list, and he'd do it diligently, and then he'd be there, you know, blowing the mower out or washing something, and we're like, "Geez, the kid," well, Lara's like, "He's really good. Do you want to take him to site and see how he goes and take him out to work?" And so we took him out to work, and the kid was just like a sponge, like just wanted to learn and absorb everything. And same thing, he was one of those like farm kids that grew up driving tractors and machinery, and he just lived and breathed it. Like, we got to the point where we put him through his excavator ticket, all his first aid, white card, chainsaw, all the normal things you got to do. But he just like, I mean, he was a kid that seemed a bit wise beyond his years. Like, he was definitely a mature, you know, 16-year-old. But we had him, like, we taught him how to fell trees, how to prune, how to do good collar cuts, pruning and stuff like that. Put him in the machine, had him truck driving out on private properties and everything. And you know, if we had to sort of bulk out material and get rid of stuff, he'd just be like, oh, yeah, I just love driving the truck. It's just, yeah, it's like really enjoying learning all this stuff. And we're like, well, we'll just keep throwing you in the deep end. And, yeah, he worked for us for about 2 years. I mean, this is a kid from Gen Z. You know, all the rhetoric you hear from people is, oh, you know, new kids, you know, they don't work hard. They've got no work ethic. You know, this generation's terrible. But this kid was one of the most diligent workers we've had. And you've got to remember, like, people like my parents' generation said that about my generation when I was a kid,
Yeah.
that we don't work and we're lazy and everything else. And now I see my peers say that about younger people. So, you know, there are good young people out there.
Yeah.
You just have to know where to find them. I remember I was listening to an older podcast episode, and I think it was when you and Jack Healy and a few others were talking about has safety, you know, as red tape sort of killed off the ability for a lot of kids to learn. And I couldn't agree more. It's something I'll get a bit fired up about when I hear it, because
Yeah.
Jack made the perfect point. He was like, there's a lot of these kids nowadays that are starting from almost less than zero when they come into a job, and it's not their fault.
Yeah.
And he's 100% right. It's not their bloody fault. It's bureaucracy and red tape has really made it difficult for these kids to get a go. And it just happens that Jacob, who worked for us, this young guy, like, he was just given a go by dairy farmers and all these people that were like, well, there's no one here to watch, get us into strife if something doesn't go quite right, you know, have a crack at this. And so he just, even though he'd never really worked in civil before, he just had that knack and that aptitude to just learn and apply himself and learn everything around it. And, you know, he left us on good terms. He's gone to work for another earth moving company now as a 17-year-old. And he's like full-time in the posse and the excavator and stuff. And, you know, I'm proud to say we gave him his first start because, yeah, it was just a really satisfying thing. So he was one of those people that was a perfect example of someone that just lived and breathed it, really loved it. You know, I'm sure there are many listeners on here that are like that. And, yeah, he just he had the right attitude and just wanted to, you know, put his best foot forward. And, like, for us, he was an absolute asset. So, yeah, there are some good young people out there. And, like, for any young person trying to get into it, my main bit of advice was don't be discouraged. Just keep at it. Just keep at it and keep at it and keep at it. And, you know, keep being passionate about it because it's good to see.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, mate. That's good advice. Yeah. Good. No, good stories because a lot of people, yeah, they don't like having employees. You know, they talk about how they've had so many and they've downsized and look, I've got to admit myself that employees it was hard. It was hard. They're your biggest asset. Yet, you know, you've got to try and manage them really carefully and they are your business. They are they're representing you when they're out there. So
Yep.
you've got to train them the way you want them to be and that. And then, yeah, sometimes you get some bad ones. Sometimes you get good ones. Most of the time, I have to admit, I've had all of them have been pretty good. There's been little minor things here and there.
Yep.
Nothing major.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
yeah,
it's arguably one of the hardest parts, I think, about running a business is staff and HR. And like, I 100% understand why so many people decide to scale back.
Yeah.
Because if the employment pool around them is no good, you know, and you've got these people that turn up and just cost you money or break machinery or, you know, provide a bad image for your business, that's a big one too. You know, turning up just looking like an absolute slob and can't turn up in clean PPE and everything else. That sort of stuff irks me really bad when I work with people. And, I get why people want to scale back. Like, I get why people like, say, Charlie from Little Bear, you know, is a one-man show, and why sort of Jack Healy has scaled back, because they do their work to a really high standard. And it's hard when you have people that might not necessarily be able to get to that standard themselves, because no one's going to care about your presentation and the maintenance of your equipment and just like how everything looks as much as you are as the business owner, which it's a tough thing to reconcile with. Like, I struggle with it a bit too.
Yeah.
You know, and like, I mean, we've really only had one person that didn't work out so far, you know, and that wasn't too bad. But I've heard some horror stories about employing people full time, and then people get disgruntled and they are impossible to get rid of, or they go and take a work ute and hide it in the middle of nowhere and just send you a message when they quit saying, come find your car, and all sorts of horror stories.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it can be tough.
Yeah.
So I don't blame why people want to scale back. At the moment, I like having at least one person just to help, because it's good, you know, if something happens with the kids or something like that, or I've got to go, like today, I had to go and pick up one of the kids early from childcare because they were a bit sick, and yeah, the guy who had working for me, Benny, could finish things off. So it pros and cons for sure.
Yeah. No, definitely. Ah, very good, man. Very, very good. What about machinery? So we've spoken a bit about, you know, how you got started. We've spoken about employees. What about your machinery? What do you have at the moment, and what machines have you had?
Yeah, so at the moment, our excavator, we've just got the one excavator. So we've got a 2019 ZX48 Hitachi, so the little 5-ton model. That's got the long dipper arm, the extra counterweight, and a wedge lock tilt hitch on it. That's been a pretty good machine. In terms of a truck, we've got a Hino 500 medium rigid, which we've had for a couple of years now, which has been that's been a good asset for us and what we do. For our line of work, because we do a lot of short-term stuff and we have to deal with shipping a lot of material around from place to place and bringing in material, having a little medium rigid is quite handy for us. We can get rock on demand. We don't have to sit there and wait, for the truck to turn up, as we've got a big open boxed out section and you're waiting on rock forever. So for us, it's not too bad having a truck. It's not so much of a necessary evil. It's just a necessity. So we've just got the excavator and truck at the moment. And for the excavator, we've run a range of attachments. So we've got, I think, what have we got? We've got 9 buckets at the moment. So ranging from all your sizes of GPs, a muddy. We've got a 1200 wide sieve bucket with GP teeth on it, which is good for, sifting out bonfire piles, cleaning out dams, smudge bar, ripper, all that sort of stuff. And then we've got 3, well, I wouldn't say 3 specialised attachments because one of them's pretty common. We've got an AR equipment hydraulic grab, and then we've got an Osma forestry mulcher, like a fixed tooth forestry mulcher for the 5-tonner. We originally ran that on our 3.5-tonner we previously had, switched over to the 5. We just put a bigger hydraulic motor on it to handle the extra flow and give it some more power. And then the one that you were referring to before, we've got a West Tech tree shear. So the easiest way to describe that is it's like a gigantic pair of hydraulic secateurs. So it quite literally just uses a large ram with an actuator arm that sort of pulls the trees into a sharp blade, and that literally just cuts and holds, so we can cut, hold, and carry complete trees. For a 5-tonner, it doesn't do the biggest amount of diameter. For really strong, uncompromised wood, it'll do trees to about 190 mil in diameter, and for sort of weak wood or damaged wood, it'll do trees to about 250 mil in diameter. So almost the diameter of like an old household concrete pipe. So, yeah, all of those, sort of like what some of your other guests have talked about recently. We aren't running those attachments every day of the week. Sometimes the attachments won't go out for, maybe 2-3 months, and then sometimes they'll run for 3 or 4 weeks straight. So it ebbs and flows a little bit. It just keeps our machines working at times when we might not be able to do other work. Like when it's a bit too wet to do earthworks or civil work, we can go to somewhere like some of our other clients and we can go and forestry mulch like fire access trails, because you can do that while it's bucketing rain, because you're not really turning the place into a quagmire. Previous machines, the first machine I ever bought was actually a stump grinder when I was still employed. I bought that and chucked it behind my ute and sort of went out, because when we were doing tree work, that was the missing piece of the puzzle to sort out trees. And so that was actually the first thing. But the first piece of earth moving equipment I actually bought a used, like an ex-hire fleet Bobcat E20 2-tonner.
Yeah.
And got a Titan engineering plant trailer for that, and that just went behind the ute. And that little machine was actually amazing for what it was. So I had a bit of money from a decent tax refund when I was working, and I sold a ute, and then I financed my new ute, so I had a bit of spare working capital, so I bought the machine outright. Put a bunch of attachments on it, just had a thumb, a ripper, a couple of buckets, and then we bought a little Cimatec flail mower for it. It's actually the one that Charlie from Little Bear has at the moment, so he bought that from me. And so we ran that on it as well, and that, I always wanted to have a flail mower or a forestry mulcher on a machine. One of the last companies I worked for ran FAE forestry mulchers on their 14-ton Volvos, and I really enjoyed working with them. So the moment I could get something that would go onto anything, I just had a crack at it, with not knowing that much. But yeah, that's what we first had. And then we also bought a chipper at the time because the right one came up. And then once we started doing larger work, we got the truck. And then once we got the truck, it sort of just all sort of escalated. Yeah. Once we got the truck, I thought, well, we can get a bigger excavator. So we sold our little 2-tonner and we bought a Bobcat 3.5-tonner, the E35 R Series, which was a great little machine as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Clark Equipment and Danny and I, one of the reps there, Matt, helped us out a lot with our first 2 machines. He gave us some really good deals and, had things that came in on trade-in, that were clean, and was just like, I could just put this aside for you if you want, which was really good. So we had yeah, good people in our corner helping us with that. So we got this 3.5 ton Bobcat that was a really good machine. It stepped us up, in terms of work size, and had a cab finally, which was nice. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you could work in all weather conditions. Look, we bought that machine with high hours. It blew a final drive when it ticked over about 3,100 hours. And at the time, there were no final drives around, no genuine OEM final drives around at Bobcat. And so there was a delay in getting it fixed. And so to plug that delay gap, we're hiring machines, which was costing a lot of money
Yeah.
because, 1 day's hire is a week's worth of repayments. So we found this Hitachi that came up, which is the current one we have, and it was sitting in a guy's shed, purchased in 2019 for a contract that never eventuated, and it had 120 hours on it, still with the new machine smell and everything. And so, yeah, we pounced onto that and bought it, and yeah, that's been the one we've had for the last 2 years. So, and that's been a really good machine, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're good machines, man. I've had a couple of goes in them. They're actually pretty good. Very, very good. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
How do you find like servicing and all that? Do you go through like a Hitachi dealer, or do you just go to your own mechanic, or what do you do with
my own
things?
mechanic. Yeah, my own mechanic that does on site. So we've got a really good diesel mechanic that does auto and diesel, but they do a lot of heavier diesel stuff on site. We've actually got two we use. It just depends on what's needed. So if it's a really, really complicated sort of issue that comes up, or something that requires something like with a cab off or whatever, we've got one person we use, and for our other servicing work, we've got another company we use. So
Yeah.
I can do basic servicing myself, but it's just finding the time. So like on a day where I could lose a couple of hours in the shed servicing, with the work we do, I can be going out, like, say, inspecting vegetation for a council client, and have the machine serviced, and obviously still look after my client while I'm getting the machine serviced. So
Yeah.
ours is a little bit different. If I was solely just doing earthworks and civil, I'd be trying to do a lot more of my own work on the machines, because I get why people do that, because you're saving. It costs a lot to service an excavator. You do a
It
1,000-hour
does.
service or something like that, and that's give or take $1,100. That's they're not cheap. So
Yeah.
yeah, we get someone to do it. And if we can do it on site, we can too. So sometimes when we're doing storm damage cleanup work and we're working on the roadsides, it's pretty easy for a mechanic to pop out and do a basic service.
Yeah. 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 Having a mobile mechanic it's a big bonus, because, like you say, you can't always get the machine to a place, or especially if you're a little bit out further or it breaks down on site, you can't even load it sometimes
Yeah,
because it doesn't move.
absolutely. And we're nowhere near like our nearest Hitachi dealer is Dandenong. But for us, that's an hour 15 away. So it's a bit of a hike. You lose a bit of time taking the machine in and out. Hitachi and Dandenong are pretty good.
Yeah.
They've helped us out with some stuff before, but it's just a bit of a hike. So, our machine is out of warranty. Like back in 2019, when they had that series of ZXs, they only came with a 3-year warranty. So by the time we bought that, it was a 2019 model that we bought in 2023 that had no use, but it had no warranty on it. So, it just didn't really make sense to take it down to Hitachi. So, we'd rather put the money in the pocket of another small business.
That's it, man. That's it. What if money wasn't a problem, I suppose, what would you want to get next? Like, if you could just buy anything, what would be your dream? What would be your dream machine? Let's say that. What would you love to own if you could own it?
Yeah, it's funny. I've always sort of, the thoughts stick over in your head when you're working. You think, oh, geez, if I could have anything. I have thought about that before, and I like that question, actually. It's good. Ideally, if I could have, like, the ideal setup at the moment, it would be something like, we go to a heavy rigid tipper, like a Mercedes Actros or a Hino 700 or something like that, with, like with a nice triaxle tag behind it. And then we'd have just two really nice machines. So, whether it be a Hitachi excavator and a Takeuchi or something like that, or two Cat Nexgens, that would be ideal. And then we'd have something like, 2 key staff, and then myself floating in and out, and also doing, all the other work surrounding it as well. So that would be good, because then for some of our jobs, we could be billing out 3 machines, because, on a lot of the work we do, we bill our truck out as well if it's working. So, you can sort of increase the turnover that way. So, yeah, ideally it'd be something like what you see when UPT put up one of those, thirst trap reels of
Yeah.
someone driving out with all their plans on a new trailer. It'd be just a nice heavy rigid, nice triaxle tag, and just two, really nice machines. I'd still happily sit in the 5-ton category. I love the 5-tonners. I think they're great. They do everything, really.
Yep.
You can smash out a sight cut, but they're still nimble enough to get into a small backyard.
Yep.
But like similar to something like maybe Jack Healy's machine, like one of those Cabelco SK75s are brilliant.
Yeah.
So something like that, maybe between a 75 and 100 horsepower posi would be good. So, that's if I could, I would, because I don't really have any desire to go and, if I could buy anything, I just wouldn't have the work for something like a D6 or a grader, and I'm not a dozer operator or a grader operator. I've got to be realistic. It's got to stay within the lane a little bit. So,
yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, that was sort of the combo I ended up with in the end. I had the Fuso tipper.
Yep.
I had the tag trailer. I had a 5.5 ton Kubota, and then I had the Cat track loader, and that was good.
Is that what you had a 239?
Yeah, the 239. Yeah. Good little machine. I'll tell you what. Yeah, good little machine. Small enough to do things like to be light enough and not rip up all the the land as I'm working, but still like powerful enough to do what I needed to do. So all rounder.
That's good. There was a hire company. They're not in business anymore, but they had one, and I hired it a couple of times, and I really liked it. That particular one was a little bit noisier in the cab than I thought, but that could have been also because it was probably knocked around a bit, like, maybe the seals and sound deadening was gone. But it was an impressive machine. We actually ran I can't remember we ran a Norm Engineering slasher on it, and it ran it really hard. But even just for doing earthworks with it, it was a great little machine. I'd happily buy one of those.
Yeah, I used a slasher on it a couple of times, and like you say, no problem, and just kept going. I did one job for 2 days straight at like 8 to 10 hours a day, and I was going hard. The machine was starting to get a bit hot. I did realise that it was starting to get a bit warm, but and all I did was just stop for a little bit, had a break, and then started again.
Yep.
And it did the slasher, no problem. Did I try any other attachments? I can't remember. I had pallet forks on it every now and then. But no other Harley rakes or anything. I haven't tried them. But it did good. Every now and then it'd bog in. So if you went into a stockpile a little bit too hard and then tried to lift it out, it sort of bogged down. It didn't like that. And it stalled sometimes if you did go too hard. But you just had to know, like, I'd go into the pile, and just before I get to like the hardest part and to a full bucket, I'd let go of the joysticks and let the machine just sort of track into it itself, and then just sort of back out. So you just sort of learn to work with it.
Yeah. I suppose you sort of get the muscle memory with how the machine responds, because they've all kind of got their own little personalities to them, I think, when you're operating. So, once you learn, we don't have a posse at the moment, but we hire occasionally, and every time I get into one, it's normally something different. And then you think, you're in the mindset of operating something like an ASV, and you jump in a Cat, and it just feels completely different. So, they've all got their own quirks.
Yeah, I'll wait till you jump in something with foot controls, like that little Husky I had to jump in. I felt like the worst guy. They all thought that I was at a landscaping company doing some streetscapes, and they actually said, "Can you just jump in that little Husky and just load the tipper?" And I was like, "Yeah, no worries." And I got in, I was like, "Oh no, foot pedals! I have no idea." And they were just looking at me and thinking, "This guy's so good in his Cat," because I usually had my the Cat one, the 239 there, and then they were like, "Do you know what you're doing?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they go, is this the same guy? And I was like, "Oh," and they're like, "All right, get out, let us just do it."
Complete amateur, It's funny, the first one I jumped in ever was a Toyota Husky, and so I learned in those foot control ones, but and so when I jumped in a pilot control one for the first time at A1, I thought, what the hell have I got myself into? This is a bit weird, but once I learned, I was like, there's no going back now.
Yeah, that's right.
There's no comparison. And it's funny, my brother is the opposite. I remember him saying to me, he's like, I jumped in someone's dual joystick one the other day. God, they're a pain in the ass. I'm like, are you kidding, mate? They're the best. Like, wait till you get used to it. You won't want to do anything else. Yeah. But he jumped in one of those because same thing, he learned a hand foot control one. So it's just what he was used to. It's pretty funny.
And you hear the guys on our live podcast, there's a little bit of an argument. You see guys like, nah, foot controls are the best. And then the guys like, no, pilot controls. Yeah, so everyone's got their opinions.
Yeah, horses for courses.
That's the one, man. That's the one. What about technology? What sort of technology are you utilising at the moment? Like, GPS or anything, or rovers, or...
In terms of... I was thinking about this today, actually, because I thought that might have been one of your questions. in terms of like site, machine control, GPS and everything, we're pretty basic. Like we're pretty rudimentary in what we've got. Like we literally run a dual grade laser for doing earthworks, and I don't even use that to its full potential a lot of the time. We don't run GPS or anything like that. However, it's funny, after watching your video with Motor's Excite 2D, that would be something we jump into. That would be our next step for sure, because that's just brilliant. Like just not having to get out of the cab and jump on the staff, or have someone there employed on the staff, or they could be something else doing something else.
Yeah.
That would be really, really handy. Even their dipper arm magnetic mounted receiver that they run, and it goes, and they've got the technology to send it straight to the app on your phone. I've actually got cold called by Moasure a little while ago, which was fine. They were just like, "Hey, have you ever thought about our products?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've seen them demoed. Wouldn't mind having a look." So not something we can afford right now, but when it comes to that sort of thing, we'd be definitely looking at Moasure for sure. Just you and Jack and a few others have definitely sold it to me for sure. So we're pretty basic when it comes to working with machine technology. In terms of like our business management technology, like we're still a pretty small business. I mean, we're heavily invested in Xero for accounting, which makes things so easy. Like I do pretty much. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's they're the market leader for a reason. And like, so I do pretty much all my own books and stuff like that. I actually like doing that part of it. It sort of keeps your finger on the pulse a bit, and just keeps you in tune with what's going on. Obviously, I don't do all the end of your financial year stuff. We've got a good accountant for that, but I do my own BAS and all that sort of stuff, and do all the reconciling and keeping an eye on everything. So, we're pretty invested in Xero. And then for actually our pre-starts, swims, toolbox meetings, incident reports, and all that sort of stuff, we're pretty heavily invested in a program called Fulcrum, which is a data collection app and program, and it lets you collect geospatial data in all sorts of different forms. We originally bought it for collecting like point data for assets for councils. So if they want you to go and map culverts, or map tip site locations, or map trees, we do a lot of like tree surveys as well, and vegetation surveys. We actually got it for that, and then to leverage that and boost that up, we've got a Trimble R2 GNSS, like the mushrooms that you see on the machines. We've got a GNSS receiver that goes on a backpack that picks up that, so we can at least bring the accuracy down to, like, we don't need survey grade accuracy when you're collecting data on trees and culverts and stuff, but we can bring the your phone's GPS is good for 4 meters, whereas you put the Trimble on and you get the accuracy down to 300 mils. So you can collect pretty accurate point and polygon data where you need to. And so we're pretty heavily invested in that, which means like very similar to RecordTime actually, except the difference with Fulcrum is you build the program yourself and you can use it for a whole different range of stuff. And so we collect all of our safe work method statements and pre-starts and everything like that. And we do them all on the phone. The guys have got a login, I've got a login, and you just obviously go through and it geolocates where you take it from and records all the times and everything like that. And so if council want a copy of your swims, like we do a reasonable amount of council work and stuff like that, we can just spit out a PDF report straight away, which has photos, all of our risk controls and everything, date stamp, time stamp, people's signatures, the whole lot. And it's just there on the click of a button. So that's probably the bit where, in terms of business technology, we do all right, because it works pretty well. So yeah, that's what we've been using for just all the other stuff. Because back in say like maybe 2020, 2021, we're doing a lot of stuff on paper, and that just becomes a nightmare when you've got like manila folders in the ute, full of just half-done pre-starts and JSAs, and I don't know about you, but my handwriting is like, it makes a doctor's handwriting look like, perfect script, and my handwriting is shocking. And so it just made sense to put everything like that digital. So we do a lot of that stuff digital, which is good.
Yeah. Look, I think it's the way of the future. And like you say, you don't want to be there fumbling around trying to find paperwork. Oh, where was that paperwork we did last week? And then, the guy's looking at you. If someone that's requested it's looking at you going, what is this guy doing? You just look disorganized, and then, like you say, you're constantly chasing your tail. If it's all recorded, it's all paperless. It's just so much easier.
Yeah, it's there in the palm of your hand. Like we do jobs where we get, say, services scanned up because we have to go and deep rip in a nature strip, for a garden bed prep or something like that, and we'll go get the services located. We'll do our dials, but at the same time, there's an extra layer of like protection for our insurance and our risk management thing. We'll not only have the paper report that the service locating and scanning people do for you. You know how they mark it all out and they give you a paper report. We
Yeah.
actually just built a little app in Fulcrum that was like reticulated service locations, and Benny, who was working for us, was just going along, and every time the guy marked up like sewer, stormwater, power, gas, Benny would just take a data point right where he marked it and recorded all his details in Fulcrum, and then as you're in the machine and you've got the phone there, you can see all those services as point data come up live in your phone as you're going along. So you're like, oh, cool, rightio, we've got a gas service here within a couple of meters. Here's just in case, like, you know what happens, you go get services scanned up, and then say 5-6 days later, that paint that they put on the grass has faded off or been scuffed off, or it fades on the curb. And so, we used like data collection software even for that, so you can actually see where stuff is live. So, it's not going to prevent you from damaging a service, but it's just an extra layer of, like, if something goes wrong, we can say, well, here's our dials, here's our service scanning records, and here's a digital copy of our service scanning records. So, you can at least hand it all over to them and just really look like you've considered all the issues a lot more.
Yeah, that's good. That's really, really good. Yeah. Yeah, and that's another way of, risk management, like you say. Exactly. Good. Well, what about, out of all the stuff that you've got, all the equipment and that, what's your favorite piece of equipment? What do you love sitting in?
I still always, actually, it's funny, I'm sort of torn between the truck and the excavator, even though they're the only two things we've got. If it's a rainy, crappy day, I enjoy just sitting in the truck and doing quarry runs and going and getting rock and material, because it's quite peaceful and quite nice. But really, if I had to sort of stay in something all the time, it'd be in the excavator, and it'd be using something, it's a tie between, using something as simple as the smudger, because the smudge bar is just so satisfying to go and prep a side or trim up material, or make something look good, or sitting in the forestry mulcher nailing blackberries is normally pretty enjoyable. I get a lot of satisfaction out of that.
Yeah, I've never used one. I'd love to have a go, man. Yeah, it'd be good.
Yeah, you should
good to have a go on
come
one
up
of
and
those things.
do a test on the machine and a test on the forestry mulcher or something like that. We can set that up.
Go.
Yeah,
I might have to come down one day. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, that sounds good, man. Sounds good. If I still had my dirt bike, I'd bring that up there. Apparently, so you're saying you do a bit of dirt bike riding, is it? Or
Absolutely. Yeah, used to race many years ago. Wasn't that good at it, but just ride for fun now. But we literally live right on the edge of the bush. We can ride out the front gate and just go a couple of k's down the road, and we're in the forest. So it's very convenient.
Yeah, very convenient. Yeah, I just got rid of mine. I had a WR250. I just got rid of it only a couple of weeks ago, because I haven't used it in a long time. A lot of my mates that used to have bikes have all sort of phased out. They're not doing it as much, or they moved away.
It gets hard.
And the same thing, it gets hard. It's hard on the body. I'm 47 now. I'm starting to feel it. So I just stick to the e-bikes. So my son and I bought those mountain bikes with the lithium batteries on them.
Yep.
And it's like a dirt bike anyway, man. The way we fly around on these things,
like
but you can do it in
full downhill spec sort of setup.
Yeah, well, they're a mountain bike, but they've just got like a battery attached to them. So they just attach a battery, and then that way you can use it without pedaling. And it's the same. Like, we hit 50, 60 k's an hour on them.
Far out.
And
that's decent.
Yeah, sometimes I look around and we just got like this basic helmet on and no padding, and I'm like, when I go dirt bike riding, we're going this speed, and I'm wearing all the gear. Now we're on the road. We've got cars to look out for, people, dogs.
Yeah,
and we've got no protection.
It's 100% riskier on the road, and you're probably doing it in a basic helmet and shorts and a t-shirt and a set of Crocs or something like that. Whereas, like, you get on the dirt bike and knee braces, neck braces, full ADR helmet and everything. So they look fun, especially if 50, 60 k's off road is quick. If you're dodging trees at 50 or 60 k's, that's a fast 50 or 60 k's. So
well, at night when we go riding, sometimes like you don't see people come out because we ride along all the walking paths and stuff, and sometimes you don't see people come out to the last second, and you're like, whoa, and you think, if I hit that person, I'm doing 60 k's.
Oh yeah,
we're going to be in big trouble, man. So so that's what I do now. That's what I do, and like, I don't have to worry about washing it down later. Getting it on the go look for a bush spot somewhere. Wait for the police to catch me. The rangers.
Yeah, you get the guilt when you don't wash the bike after you've ridden it, because it's just plastered and stuff, and then all the alloy gets pitted out, and it looks hopeless. And that's the hardest thing. That's always like, I come back from a ride and I'm just like, and I don't get a lot of chance to ride at the moment just because we're in a busy stage of life, 2 young kids and a business. busy
Yeah.
stage of life, but a very beautiful stage of life. But, you just, obviously, things like writing, get put on the back burner a little bit because you've got the free time. You might as well be sort of, spending it with your kids, or, giving the wife a break or something like that, or, going out as a family. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but look, we've got it there. If ever sort of, get the urge, you can always it's easy just to get out of the shed and go for a spin. So, yeah, it's
Yeah.
good.
And you're lucky. Yeah, it's at your doorstep as well. Very lucky. What about, so let's talk about the future. So where do you see yourself or your business in the next maybe 5 years, just say
Yep.
5 to 10 years?
Yeah, very good question. We haven't really made any sort of haven't really made any concrete plans. We're just like, let's just see how it cruises along. I'd like to, there's growth is good. Like growth is really hard. I think it's probably one of the more challenging parts of the business that I've found. Like to be able to know when there is the right time to invest in that piece of equipment or put someone else on that's a really difficult thing to do. And the people that do it well, hats off to them. I'd like definitely a bit of natural organic growth would be good. So, maybe we'd like to actually, we're going to try and buy a tag soon for the truck because currently we're just slamming the 5-tonner into the back of the tipper body, which, kind of convenient and a bit cheaper, but at the same time, it has its downsides as well. I can't cart, a lot of attachments around. So we'll put air to the back of that truck and buy a tag soon. And so once we do that, eventually when the time's right, that will open the door for some more machinery. So I'd really like to get a posi at some stage.
Yeah.
I'll be realistic. I think our first posi is going to be a clean, low-hour second-hand one, because we just have to, like what we did with the first excavator, just start modest and just see how we go, and just build from there. So certainly, I think I'd like to have the basic, like what we were talking about before, when if money was no issue, what kind of setup would you have? Maybe
Yeah.
in say 5 to 10 years, the basic version of that. So the truck, the tag along, and 2 machines, and maybe still the one guy, like Benny might be still working for us at that stage. He's working out pretty well. So or maybe have 2 people and just. I think trying to keep it high quality and compact seems to be how I'd like to do it. I don't have any ambitions to take on the world or make some huge company or anything like that. I would really like to just keep building a good client base locally where we are. We try and keep our work as local as possible because we spend our money back in the local economy, and it's nice not having to travel, a long way.
Yeah.
Done my fair share of that when I was younger.
Yeah.
So, and that's why we do a reasonable range of service, because if I was just, say, a forestry mulching person, or if I was just a general earthworks person down here, it would be a bit harder to get the work. So you definitely have to be a little bit broad sometimes. So really just to sort of build up the plant and staff organically and sort of, really corner a lot more of the market and, get onto a couple more panels with, state and local government around here, like those panel service contracts, and just secure a lot of work for the future. Because at the moment we're steady with work, and we've got a good mix of commercial work for councils and private work, and it's mostly in our local area or the neighbouring regions, and that's really nice.
Yeah.
I really love going at the door and working somewhere where I know people personally, and you just become part of that community. So that's really, really good.
Yeah. Oh, good. That's very well put. And I'm hearing that. I'm hearing that a lot from my guests that, they want to stay in their lane and not have massive ambitions, and then all these people putting on all these workers, buying all this equipment, because it can easily get out of hand. And I've spoken about this in many of my podcasts, and it's good. It's actually good to see. So, like you say, you haven't got any real sort of set plans, but you obviously have something in mind. So that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, hats off to the people that, go pretty big like that. It must be hard. It must take a lot of guts. And, there'd be some moments that are really scary with it. But, just even growing to the level we are and, maybe getting another bit of plant and another staff member, that's still a lot of work for a small business. And we've got a young family, a couple of kids, as I've said. And, I'm home every night or I'm there to pick up the kids from childcare or kinder anytime we have to be. And that, to me, carries a lot of weight and, is pretty special to me. And, our kids are only young once, so I don't want to be working hours and hours away, doing stayaways and sort of thinking that I have to turn over, so much money because we have so much money invested, in plant and equipment. That's not where I'd like to be at the moment. So if I can, be there and spend time with the kids and family and my friends and stuff like that, that's a big part of, what makes this, because there's no point doing it if you're not going to enjoy it and enjoy the rewards from it. And, at the moment it sort of feels like we're enjoying the ride a bit, and getting a little bit of reward from it now. So it's good.
Yeah, that's right. And you don't want to lose that passion for it because, like you say, when you first start, you do it because you're passionate about it. You want to have a go at it.
Yeah.
And then money sort of takes over a bit sometimes, and people are like start to get hungry, and they're like, "Oh, I can get more. I can do more." And it's like you got to be careful that you don't start losing that passion and then just becoming money hungry or trying to do it because other people are doing it. Like you got to know why you're doing it, like you say, and work-life balance.
Yeah.
Work-life balance, big thing. Yeah,
absolutely.
No.
If you've got young kids, they're not going to remember all the money you made or all the clients you kept happy. They're going to remember when mum or dad was there and mum or dad did stuff for them, or mum and dad, went to, turned up to a sports game or picked them up from kinder and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's pretty important. I think it can be hard because, even I've been guilty of it, getting that sickness where you get so consumed in what everyone else is doing, you think, geez, this person's really got their act together and they've got all this stuff going on. Why am I doing that? But you're only seeing the front of house show. You have no idea what's going on in the background. You have no idea whether they're dealing with all sorts of horrible dramas in their life, or they may have, that they may have just sacrificed a lot more than you did to get where they are. You just don't know what people are going through. So it's, and that's what's really good about the podcast and what you do, because, we look at so many different pages and social media and stuff like that, but doing the podcast and doing the point of view social media stories, it humanizes the whole thing, and it humanizes people a lot more. It's like if you listen to a podcast with someone you may not have agreed with on what they are with their principles or whatever, but you hear them out on a podcast talking to a guest, and it humanizes the whole thing. And even if you don't agree with them, still at the end of it, you're still just like, fair enough, respect. And in a different way, that's what you're doing with this. You're sort of breaking down those barriers, that were once there, because everyone just thought that everyone was taking on the world, but not realizing that so many other people have the same types of struggles. I don't think there's been a single episode of your podcast I've listened to when someone's talked about something they've struggled with, and I'm just like, oh shit, I've been there. I've 100%, but I know how you feel. I get that all the time. There's all those moments in the car, and I'm just like, oh, yep.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. I get it too. As my guests are talking, I'm like, yep. That's all I keep saying. Yep, I understand exactly what they're saying. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter even if it's a different industry. I've got really good friends that are sparkies or builders or insurance brokers and stuff like that with their own businesses, and the trepidation that you go through is all the same if you're in business. It's what it is. Doesn't matter if it's a different industry. I can call up one of my best mates who has a pretty successful sparky business, and they've got this beautiful looking company, great staff, amazing branding. But there'll be times where he's just like, oh man, this week's been really shit. I've really struggled this week, or I've struggled to put enough money away to do this or whatever, or I've had this difficulty or whatever. So and this is a really successful business that kicks butt. And, but people go through it. I saw Jimmy Starbuck actually put up a post a couple of years ago when he was still pretty, he's obviously big now, but even still when he had 80 staff, and he put up a post saying that, we've just hit a massive cash flow issue and our business is on the verge of, really tanking. And so it doesn't matter what size you are, the challenges are still the same. Even those big players go through the same pain points. So I think it does really good work, I think, when you get people on there talking about this sort of stuff.
And that's the whole point of having these platforms, so people can share their stories. And I always say that because a lot of guys don't talk about things, and then they think they're in a boat by themselves, but they're not really. We're all in the same boat at the end of the day. So what about, I suppose we're sort of coming up to the end here. What do you do for advertising apart from being on Earthworks Hub directory? What else do you do? You're on social media, obviously you're on Instagram. Do you use that much to your benefit? What do you find?
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a benefit there. So we're fairly active on Instagram, slightly less active on Facebook, but still reasonably active. Obviously our Instagram page is linked to our Facebook and vice versa. Oh, sorry, no. Instagram, obviously, you can automatically load to Facebook, but not the other way around. But there's two. I guess Instagram helps us inside the industry. It feels like we tend to get sort of good info. I tend to find we get good information from other people on Instagram, and it's a good way of like strengthening your community around you.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily win work out of Instagram. I think I've only had one job where someone's directly messaged me from a sponsored ad and said, "Hey, saw your ad. Can you come and look at this?"
Yeah.
However, as you've said a few times, it keeps you front of mind for a lot of other professional clients. Instagram is kind of like LinkedIn without as much corporateness to it.
Yeah.
And so that does that. But we don't advertise really anywhere else apart from obviously your site on Earthworks Hub.
Yeah.
We actually advertise on Facebook a little bit when we get a bit quiet. And I've found actually Facebook advertising is fairly successful for us. It does quite well. So similar to what Charlie, I think, was talking about, we do sponsored Facebook ads, but the thing that yields us the most amount of work is posting up good examples of what we do in like local community groups. That is like a force multiplier. Some of those local community groups, if you go to like, I don't know, if you live in the Macedon Ranges, you might go on a Macedon Ranges community group. If you're down in West Gippsland here where we are, like one of our local community groups, which is just meant to be for Druin and Warrigal, so they're two biggest towns, pretty much sister towns side by side. There's like 50,000 members on one of those pages. You put an ad out there, it gets to 50,000 people at no cost. And so some of those can be remarkably successful. We've got a local one for like our little end of town here. You know, we're on the north side of our region. And so we've got one, I think it's called like the Neerim and Surrounds notice board from Neerim South and all that, and Bullen and all these other towns. Yeah. And it encompasses like 6 towns or something like that. I've put like just a post up on one of those showcasing us doing some rock work in some cattle gateways. And when we're quiet, that picked me up a client that's spent over 20 grand with us so far over like a year and a half. And so like for an ad that cost you nothing, we ended up with 20 grand's worth of turnover out of it. It was just amazing. So that actually, and that was a mate of mine that went out on his own with his Bobcat and Tipper that I mentioned earlier. That was his little trick. And I remember him telling me, said the community groups, get your business page onto those community groups and put a lot of positive stuff on there, and you'll be amazed at how much work you'll get from it. So that's actually picked us up a bit of work. With how long we've been at it now for, a lot of it is word of mouth. Word of mouth is probably the most powerful thing, especially in rural areas. We are coming from, I had a background in local government, like in council. I worked at a couple of councils for a bit, so I had some contacts and I was known to a couple of councils when I went out on my own. And so there was that, sort of like bit of a network and connection there, which helped us get into a lot of places.
Yeah.
But yeah, we sort of really, not so much on Instagram, but a bit of advertising on Facebook. And other than that, we're not really doing much anymore. It's, it seems to just naturally sort of, cruise along. So.
Yeah. No, that's good. Good advice for people as well if they're wondering where to start with advertising. That's good.
Yeah.
That's very good.
Absolutely. Even like Charlie's Charlie's technique about buying the coffees at coffee shops and handing your business cards out. I've seen so many other people do it. We've done it before, and even like I did it a little while ago, just before Christmas, and I thought, do it as a bit of advertising. We'll just do it as a nice thing before Christmas too, And we did it, and like with the work we do, right? If you count back to like we do fuel breaks and fuel management with the forestry mulcher. As I paid for 30 coffees and handed over my business cards, the first person that came to pick up a coffee while I was still there before I could kind of slink away and, not feel awkward about it was someone that worked for Fire Rescue Victoria. Oh. And he looked at my card and went, forestry mulching, handy card to have. And I was like, how good. Yeah. So you'd be amazed at what that does. And I mean, not only that, you've spent just as much on what you would spend if you took out a decent newspaper ad, but at the same time you've also done a really kind thing for 30 people and spread some joy to people, and you never know, the first or second, third, fifth, 30th person that picks up a coffee might be having the shittest day ever or the shittest shift ever, or has sick kids in a hospital or something like that, and they've just got a free coffee from you. Like you brighten their day, but also you've definitely increased your chances of getting work. I mean, my business card got shown around in a couple of community groups when I did that, and that reached tens of thousands of people. So if you didn't get a job out of it straight away, it's at least positive exposure. And you've done a nice deed, which always feels good.
That's what I was going to say. It's not just about the money, man. That's it. That's good. It's more than just the money. That's what we have to always remember as well, that it's not just the money, man. Don't always just focus on that. Like sometimes if you don't make as much money on one job, you might make more in the next one. Yeah. If a customer's really happy at the end of the day after you've done something, just that feeling of satisfaction and knowing that you've just done a really good job and they're happy. That's
you can
sometimes
put your
that's
hand
good
on your
enough,
heart and say you've done everything you can. And for us, especially because we want to work locally, for us it is so big about community. You know, the people we work for go to kinder with those kids' parents, and you know, like we work for the person that tints my windows on my excavator, or the local tinder car dealership. You know, we work for on his mum and dad's farm, you know, doing earthworks and stuff like that. So the community thing for us, and probably for many people, like, you know, is just huge. So
yeah. You know, it's funny you mentioned Nearim South before. I did a job up there once. I had to travel all the way from here, so I'm in the west of Melbourne, and I had to drive up there. It was like 2 hours every day, or 2.5 hours or something. I can't remember. In the tipper as well, with the 5-tonner on the back. So, and I was thinking afterwards, it was like 3 or 4 days of demolishing a house up there, and I was thinking I should have just stayed up there. Would have been easier. But going back to my story, the whole point of it is I discovered a town that I never knew existed on the way there called Robin Hood.
Oh yeah,
there's actually Robin. I was driving and I was like, you know, there's all forest around, and then in the middle of that, I see Robin Hood, and I was like, am I seeing things? Is there such a town? Like, what's going on here? It's called Robin Hood, isn't it?
Yep, Robin Hood. Yeah, that area just between Longwarry and Drew and West. It's got like a pub and a swimming hole. That's pretty much about it.
Yeah. Is it the Fox and the Hound or something? There's
I think it's just
or something like
it's
that.
called the Robin Hood Inn or something like that. I think it's been there forever. It's like one of those old heritage listed buildings with the plumbing on the outside and everything like that. Been there for eons. It's actually under new ownership at the moment, and the new owners are pretty damn good. The meals there used to be awesome. We used to go there quite often.
Oh, there you go. Nice. Yeah, there you go. So if anyone's in that area, check it out, man. Check it out. All right. That's it, man. No, look, I'm all out of questions. Is there anything that you wanted to add that I haven't asked, or what do you think?
I did think about this today because I thought, talking about like people wanting to get into it, or I guess for anyone that is about to go into business for themselves doing this or whatever, if I was going to offer any sage advice from what I've done so far, there's a couple of things I thought about. This was like, one, enjoy the ride. Don't just be focused on, in 10 years, I'm going to have this much plant and equipment or whatever. Enjoy the ride while you're going through it, because you're meant to be in it because you're passionate about it, and also you make money. But, you know, do it because it keeps the fire in you going. Like, there's now in a position now that we have enough work that I don't have to take on things just because it's going to pay well. Like, not all business is good business. So, you know, enjoy the ride and do what actually gets you fired up. If you just think, geez, you know, I really want to buy, you know, a new attachment and I think I can do it because the thought of just getting that, you know, gets me fired up and I can start a new line of business. Well, I think it's probably a good thing to pursue that. Not everything has to be strategic. It can be from the heart. And to get a good, when it comes to, I've learned when it comes to dealing with, picking the suppliers and dealers and stuff like that you go through, find someone that's happy to give you the time of day to have a freewheeling chat and get on your level and just help you problem solve some stuff. Like, I don't mean wasting, a machinery rep's time for 2 hours just talking crap, but, someone that, if we didn't have people like, I'll have to give them a bit of a shout out. I really should. Like, say, Tom at Euro Mulches up at Warburton that supplies all the mulches, or like Matty McCann at Clark Equipment, the Bobcat dealer in Dandenong, that were happy enough to be like, hey, I'll check the flow rates of this machine and, just give you a bit of extra info and stuff like that. Leave it with me. I'll get back to you. And they give you back all the specs and say, yes, I think that new machine you're going to purchase is going to be able to run that attachment. Like, for a small business owner like us, massive peace of mind. If you can have people that are happy to be in your corner and just help you problem solve and get on your level a bit, that's great. Because I've dealt with some before that, unless you're the size of some large player, they just don't want to know you, and it makes things really hard. So, if you can get that good network around you, almost like that village they talk about, that's a massive thing. But most people enjoy the ride because it's fun.
Yeah, that's it, man. That's it. It's like we were saying, it's not, don't just think about the money, which is important. Yes, you've got bills to pay. Yes, you've got to keep your business going. But also, you've got to enjoy it. And then, look, maybe if you're not enjoying it, then maybe you've got to start looking at doing something different, or, going into a different machine or a different aspect of earth moving. There's other aspects as well. Like we said, vegetation and all that, I never knew it was that big. I never really thought about it that much.
I mean, we struggled with that a bit. We chased the vegetation and sort of forestry type work because I really enjoyed it, but it's been a bit of a slog to get there, and we're still not there yet. You know, there's still a lot of work we don't get, but we're starting to build. And yeah, sometimes it's good just to sit back and, you know, when little things that you want to work to do happen, and just like celebrate those little successes. Like sit back and just go, hell yeah, how good's this? Like, you know, we try and do that when we're on the job too. Like if we're on a job we really enjoy, I normally try and say to, you know, whoever's working with us, hey, let's stop and just have a little victory coffee, you know, or something like that. Like just someone do a coffee run, sit back for a couple of minutes and just like enjoy it, because, you know, we're all getting paid and it's enjoyable and everyone's got a smile on their face, and like you got to sort of just take stock and sit there and just be in the moment a little bit sometimes. So yeah, I didn't do it enough when I first started. I'm doing it a lot more now, and I'm sort of happy I do it. So
yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, man. I couldn't agree more. Especially if it's your own job, it's probably not bad because you can do that. If you're working for, you know, a bunch of concreters and they're screaming at you, that's a different story. But you won't always have that. Look, even then, I've had guys like that are really, really pushy. And like, for instance, I've worked for these concreters for a long time, and at the start, I was like, I hated them because they were like, go, 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 and then I realized what happens is what they like to do is kick it off, start really, really early, go for it, smash the job out. And then he'll go and buy lunch for all of us. Then we'll go buy food. And then after that, it's once they get to a certain stage, they've boxed everything up, it's all ready to pour. Then they all just sit back a bit and it's all good. So then you learn to be in their rhythm. So yeah, it's not always a bad thing. Yeah, there might be a reason they're like that. So it's a bit hard. Yeah. So anyway, it's good. No, very good. Good advice, man. What you've given. I'll tell you what, you've done some. You've covered a lot of really good topics that people ask about a lot. You know, like how to start out, employees, you know, the different types of machinery, and you've given a lot of good sound advice to people, and I really, really appreciate having you on, man. It's been a really good chat.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome, Ivan. Thank you. It's been great to speak about it. Hopefully, I haven't rambled on too much, you know, or talk too much shit. But yeah, look, I remember being, you know, and I still am always hungry for information. So, you know, it's always good to, you know, get that. And when I first started, I would have loved to have heard someone sit down that's been in it just for a couple of years, you know, I'm still muddling my way through, but having fun doing it. And yeah, to have that sort of advice. So I think what you're doing is really beneficial. It's making the industry a much better place. So, I mean, it was always a good industry and lovely place to work, but yeah, you know, the network and, you know, community that you're creating around, I think is doing a lot of good. It's been awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, man. Thank you. All right, so if listeners want to get in touch with you, where is the best place for them to get in touch?
So if you want to, I guess, see the work we do, Instagram, so at precision_enviro. For some reason, Precision Environmental on Instagram was taken, so I had to settle for that. And if you go on Facebook and just search on there, Precision Environmental, you'll find us with the little green logo and the tree on there. Then a bit of stuff. Haven't got a website at the moment. Definitely something to work on.
Mm-hmm.
We do need to get one of those happening. So, yeah, that'll be the next thing to work on. But Instagram's where we showcase most of the stuff.
No worries, no problem. No, good. All right, well, like I said, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Good, really, really good chat. Very beneficial for all the listeners, I'm pretty sure. For all the listeners out there, thank you very much for joining us. Make sure that you like, follow, share the shit out of it. I always say that. Go onto all my platforms. So Earthworks Hub in, what have I got? YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Also, all these podcasts are out on Spotify and Apple. So yeah, we're out on all the platforms you can think of. Look up Precision Environmental. So even though it says Precision Enviro on there, Precision Environmental is the name if you need it. I'll put all the details in the description as well, so you'll have James's details in there. And yeah, once again, James from Precision Environmental, thank you very much for joining us.
No worries, Ivan. Been a pleasure. Thank you.
No worries. All right. Take care, guys. Have a good one. See you in the next episode.